Warning, I swear a lot.
It is 1 o'clock in the PM and you're watching The Foreman. I'm your host, Foreman, and I just finished my Bloodborne series. I don't remember when I started it. Feels like an entire lifetime ago, to be honest, because I enjoyed every second of it, of course I did. But Bloodborne's a long game, and it's an arduous journey, and there's a lot of shit in there that will fuck you up. And it was tough, it was difficult, it was tricky, it was stressful, but we got there in the end, and I feel this very big sense of accomplishment, despite the fact I have beaten the game before. For those of you who don't know, this was not a blind playthrough. I have beaten Bloodborne before, but only once, and I'm not very good at Bloodborne, so if you want to see me get my head kicked in consistently, and you haven't watched that series, maybe you want to go check it out, because it's now a full series. Every single boss in the game, including the Old Hunters DLC. But I wanted to talk about Bloodborne as a whole, because it's fresh in my mind, I'm passionate about the game, and, want to discuss it. I did kind of talk about some stuff in regards to Bloodborne at the end of the final episode, but I'm not going to operate under the assumption everyone who's here has watched the entire series. So if you don't want to go trawling through 17 videos worth of misery to try and find out what I think about the game, I'll summarize here. We'll talk more about it here. But Bloodborne, Bloodborne. Bloodborne. I told a story in that video, and I will summarize it here very briefly, but essentially, Bloodborne was the game that made me get a PS4. I have no preference. I'm not a console wars boy. I don't care about that shit. I have no preference between the consoles. If you brought me irrefutable proof that the Xbox One is better, I'd be like, fine, cool, whatever, don't care. The only reason I wanted a PS4 over an Xbox One is because I wanted Bloodborne. That's it. And I couldn't afford Bloodborne, or I couldn't afford a PS4 for the longest time, so I spent years not being able to play Bloodborne and just seeing it from a distance, just watching it from afar and wishing that I could play it. And then I finally got it, long story short. I finally got a PS4, and the first thing I did when I bought my PS4 was made sure a copy of Bloodborne came with it, because that was what I wanted to play above anything else. And I'm pleased to say that when I finally got to play Bloodborne for itself, it absolutely lived up to all of the hype I had for it prior to playing it. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was everything I expected it to be. And it is, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, the strongest Souls game currently out there. Bearing in mind this goes up before Elden Ring comes out. We don't know what that's going to be like. As of this moment, I think it's the strongest Souls game. And it's hard to say why specifically, because there's nothing wrong with, on a general scale, there's nothing wrong with Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. A lot of people don't like Dark Souls 2, I actually quite enjoy it, but there's nothing wrong with those games. There's nothing here to say like, oh, Bloodborne's really good and those games are really shit and I like Bloodborne, and I don't like those other games. I didn't get along well with Dark Souls 3, but I am planning to rectify that by having another go at it from the beginning. I don't know whether or not I'll record that, let me know what you think, but yeah, no, I've beat Dark Souls 1, and I beat Dark Souls 2. And I enjoyed both those games. Both those games are fantastic, but there is something about Bloodborne that just sets it apart from all the rest. And I'm not even necessarily talking about the Lovecraftian and Cthulhian aspects to it. Insight and cosmic beings and knowledge that drives you crazy. That shit's great, but that's not even specifically what I'm talking about here. There's just something to it. It has style. There is such style and flourish to Bloodborne. The clothes that your characters can wear, the long coats, the face obscuring hats, there's an image. There is an image there, and it's very cool. The way dodging works, the dashing across the room as opposed to rolling, because let's be real, spamming rolling does look kind of silly a lot of the time, but spamming dash can look silly, but it looks a lot cooler. It's a lot cooler and it feels a lot better in my opinion. The trick weapons, being able to transform your weapon mid-fight is incredible. Now for a lot of my series I use Ludwig's Holy Blade, or the Holy Moonlight Sword. That's an important distinction because Ludwig's Holy Blade is the Silver Greatsword. The Holy Moonlight Sword, or just Moonlight Sword, I don't remember this fucking name, but I use that. And the transformation on that weapon is not particularly fancy. It's just small greatsword to bigger greatsword. with magic powers around it. Not particularly impressive. But then you look at things like even something as simple as the threaded cane, which oozes style. That weapon is very stylish, but the saw spear and saw cleaver, you just tap L1 and they just flick the blade out of it, which is amazing. The hunter's axe is super cool. Kirk hammer deserves honorable mention for being one of the sickest things ever, right? Pride to Palish, very fancy. The Shikage is fun. Not the most practical weapon I found, but that's because I suck at the game. Amygdalan arm, the fucking, the boom hammer, the cost parasite once you get the right rune for it. So many cool, interesting, diverse, and stylish weapons in the game. Which really does make up for the fact that Bloodborne has significantly less weapons than the Dark Souls games, because the Dark Souls games' weapons are all very similar. A broadsword and a longsword are pretty much the same thing. All the katanas in Dark Souls are disappointingly similar, in my opinion. Hammers and axes are basically the same thing. Like, there's not a lot of variety in Dark Souls. There's not actually that much variety in the movesets for Bloodborne either. The weapons do all fight differently, yes, of course they do, but they don't have particularly expansive movesets, you know? And you're going to be relying on like 2 or 3 different kinds of attacks for your entire time. There's some stuff you just won't bother with. Like, I love transformation attacks. I don't use them very often, because a lot of the time they're not practical. You're better off just backing off and then tapping L1 to transform the weapon if you want to transform the weapon. But the fact that transformation attacks are a thing is a big point in the game's favor, because transformation attacks are some of the coolest things in the game. The audio for Bloodborne is amazing, just like some of the ambient sound is a little minimalist. I find some areas are a bit too quiet, but places like the Nightmare of Mensis, for instance, and the Upper Cathedral Ward have fantastic ambient sound, which almost kind of becomes music in the background in its own way. Like Yharnam, the Unseen Village, has really good ambient sound, and the boss fight themes, oh my god. Cleric Beast, Father Gascoigne, Vicar Amelia is the same as Cleric Beast. There are many more that I really like. A lot of them come from the DLC, like Ludwig's, Lady Maria's, Lawrence. Lawrence's theme is sick. I actually put that on my phone and listened to it through headphones, like without the sounds of combat over it, just listen to the theme by itself, and Lawrence's is amazing. The organs are such a nice touch, and the fact that it is basically an evolution of the Cleric Beast theme is incredible. I remember Ebriatus had a really good theme as well, and Mikolash's theme was actually quite good, even though his boss fight sucks ass. Like, real bad. In fact, if we wanted to change up the tone of this video for a moment and actually criticize the game, I'd say, after beating Rom, and Rom sucks as a boss fight, by the way, after beating Rom, the boss fights really do take a nosedive, like a hard nosedive. So you got like the One Reborn, who is garbage. You have Mikolash, who is garbage. You have Murgo, or Murgo's wet nurse more specifically, who is okay. Literally just okay. You have Gehrman, who is cool in concept but kind of annoying in gameplay, and the Moon Presence, who is very much the same thing, but unlike Gehrman, doesn't really put up much of a fight. You get all your best boss fights before Rom dies. So, like Cleric Beast, Father Gascoigne, Vicar Amelia, Amygdala. You can do Amygdala after Rom dies, but you can get to Amygdala before Rom dies, so I'm counting it as before Rom. Ligarius is pretty cool. I actually really like the Bloodstaff Beast. I think that's an interesting and tricky little boss fight. I appreciate that one. You could count the Chalice Dungeon bosses, I guess, but a lot of them kind of suck. There's like a few standout ones. The Watchdog sucks and can fuck off. That boss is awful. The Undead Giant sucks and can fuck off. That one's awful. The Thumerian Elders and stuff was actually pretty cool. The Watcher of the Fire, it's just like that person in the witch outfit, basically. Pretty cool. But before Rom, though, the Witches of Hemwick, that boss sucks ass. That boss sucks major ass. Shadows of Yharnam are pretty cool, but would have been better if there'd only been one, to be honest. But yeah, after Rom dies, I struggle to think of a single good boss fight. Ebriatus is an annoying boss fight. She's just annoying to fight. That's the end of it, because she has that nearly undodgeable charge, and then she starts throwing magic around everywhere. And magic is very annoying to fight, in my opinion. I do have to specify that all this is in my opinion. And then you get the, like, I can't imagine playing Bloodborne without the DLC. In fact, I think Bloodborne would be significantly worse without the DLC, because the Old Hunters is one of the best pieces of DLC I've ever seen for a video game. Not the best, but one of the best, right? Because Ludwig, Lady Maria, the Orphan of Kos, exceptional boss fights. I forgot about the Celestial Emissary because it's so shit. And then, of course, the DLC does have its own version. The Living Failures are garbage. But it doesn't matter because it's followed up by Lady Maria. So you get over it pretty quick. You get over that one pretty quick. I actually hate fighting Lawrence, but I do love his boss scene. But Lawrence's fight itself, I don't get along with. I think that's more of a personal thing, though. So it's interesting, really, to look at Bloodborne. And I love Bloodborne, as I've said, but a lot of the bosses suck. A lot of the bosses are actually kind of terrible. In fact, everything after Rom, every boss fight after Rom sucks, but the areas after Rom are fantastic, right? The changes to Yahar Ghul make it much more interesting. The Upper Cathedral Ward is a fantastic area. The Nightmare of Mensis is like on the cusp of greatness, but if you just get rid of the frenzy, just get rid of the frenzy and it would be great. Get rid of the frenzy, and then it would every area in the game would be improved by getting rid of frenzy. Get rid of the nightmare brain. Get rid of the fucking winter lanterns, or at least rework them. I think I talked about reworking them in the series. Like, I don't know, have the build-up be slower. Because if you did that, you could utilize the winter lantern as a risky enemy that you could put amongst other enemies and then force the player to try and get past those other enemies to kill her, rather than just have her being a wandering one-shot. She's not quite a wandering one-shot, but fighting a Winter Lantern is just not a good idea, and it's not fun, and it's annoying, and you will lose echoes to them. You will. It's inevitable. Every player will lose echoes to a Winter Lantern at some point. I feel really confident in saying that. I despise them. Oh yeah, I did mention Amygdala. I'm all over the place. Like, I literally just beat Bloodborne and I was like, okay, let's do the fucking video. Let's do a Foreman Talks about it. Because I'm all overwhelmed with emotions and feelings and adrenaline, because I also fought the Orphan of Kos today. And that was a whole thing. Bloodborne. It's so hard to talk about what's great about Bloodborne, because it's just... You kind of just go, oh, everything, really? Everything's good about Bloodborne, except for those bosses that I mentioned. But, like, you don't even care that those bosses suck. You don't. I don't. I don't care that they suck. I don't care that the one reborn is lame. I don't care that Mikolash sucks. I cared in the moment, but you don't care beforehand, and you don't care after the fact, because the game is so good. You don't care that those bloodsuckers and Canehurst are some of the worst fucking enemies in the game and are horribly designed garbage, because once you're not fighting them anymore, your brain just goes back to, man, I love this game. This game is great. It's so good. There's something about Bloodborne where it's just, you always want to keep playing. You always want to keep going. It's just enjoyable to play. It is rough. Bloodborne is rough, yes. I had a fairly, and I'm using the term loosely here, fairly easy time of it on this playthrough, because I had played the game before and I've gotten in a lot of practice, which meant that I could actually play the game. And I feel this was necessary for actually making the series enjoyable, because it changed it from being Bloodborne to Snailborne, where I'm going at like an area every 5 episodes, right? Because I've played the game, know where I'm going, and have an idea of what to expect, I could play the game properly and actually progress, and we could bang out that series in 17 videos rather than, say, 50. You know. But there's something about it, just the fights in Bloodborne are so fast-paced, and they legit give me adrenaline. Like, even Gascoigne, who to someone like me, and I'm not good at, like I've said, I'm not good at the game, but someone who's played it enough, Gascoigne is not hard. Gascoigne's not hard at all, but I still get adrenaline fighting Gascoigne because it's such a fast-paced fight, and his boss track is so good. The strings on his boss fight music are incredible. Really builds a tone. Everything about Bloodborne is tone and atmosphere, which makes it an enjoyable and engaging world to exist within. It's an oppressive, dark atmosphere, and you constantly feel in danger, even when you're not. Even when you're in an area you're way too strong for, you're still a little careful sometimes. Sometimes you're still looking around corners, you're still keeping an eye out for ambushes because the game is oppressive and you don't feel safe. I very much enjoyed trying out a variety of weapons in this playthrough, because I should say that in this series I tried out more weapons than I've ever tried out in any series ever. Or sorry, in any playthrough of Bloodborne ever. That was completely the wrong sentence. Like when I originally played Bloodborne and beat it, I basically did everything I could to get the Blades of Mercy. I predominantly used the Sword Spear up until that point, because the Sword Spear is an amazing weapon, and if you're not sure what to play it with, just use the Sword Spear, because it will carry you. It's not an OP, broken, devastating weapon, it's just the most versatile weapon in the game, I think. It can handle most situations. But I went for the Blades of Mercy, and then went for Lady Maria's Rakuyo, and then the Rakuyo and the Blades of Mercy were my two go-to weapons. Which, they are very good weapons, but oh boy are they lacking in stagger damage. And this playthrough, I came to learn how useful stagger damage is against bigger targets, right? I use like the Beast Cutter, for instance, and yeah, being able to smack something so hard that it doesn't attack you is handy. Using the Moonlight Sword, not as much stagger damage as the Beast Cutter, but enough to still give larger enemies pause for thought. And that's really helpful in a lot of cases. Of course the game isn't perfect. I will never sit here and try and tell you that the game is perfect. It has many problems. Some of the enemy designs are questionable. Those giant shark giants in the fishing hamlet can fuck off. I don't think... The ones equipped with the anchor, I don't think I killed a single one in the series, and I don't care. And I have no interest in going back and rectifying that. Not that I could anyway, because I'm in New Game Plus now. But I have no interest in doing so. They are annoying to fight. Just annoying, that's it. Like the bloodsuckers as well, who are in the Hunter's Nightmare and in Canehurst. Just annoying to fight. That giant spider room in the Nightmare of Mensis, right? Other than being literally my worst fear, also annoying to fight. Although I guess they're annoying to fight for me because I'm scared of spiders. That giant one always kills me because I panic whenever it so much as raises one of its legs. So I just start smashing dodge, and then it clips me while I'm dodging and I die. And then I say to myself, well, I'm not going to fight that. I'm going to run past it because I don't want to deal with it. Bloodborne is not perfect, and I think anyone who says it is trying too hard to make the game seem like more than what it is, perhaps. But it is a damn good game. It is an exceptional game. Exceptional. Every one of the faults it has, and it has many, just seem to melt before the game's many pros, the feelings you get while playing it, the rush, the joy and thrill of being a boss, or surviving a difficult encounter, or dispatching a group of enemies with flourish. You can even look stylish while doing it. And like visceral attacks, oh my god, like it's, obviously that came from the idea of, in Dark Souls 1 and 2, where you would parry and riposte an enemy. You parry them with your shield and then stab them, and then that's great. But they do not compare to parrying and riposting and visceral attacks in Bloodborne. There's no contest. They're so much better in Bloodborne. The idea of something huge coming bearing down to attack you, and you flick up your pistol and shoot him to knock him off balance, and then you bury your fucking hand in their chest and rip it out the side. Incredible. Incredible. In-fucking incredible. Always feels good. Never gets old. Ever. Even if you play a parry build, it does not get old. Sure, the effects may wear off a little bit. Sure. But it's always satisfying. Always satisfying. And you should. If you're like, maybe I'll do a parry build, do a fucking parry build. It's fun. my last one was basically a parry build. The thing is I suck at parries, so that's why I struggled so much. And I always had those runes on which increased visceral attacks, even in fights where I couldn't really visceral, so I was hamstringing myself. But yeah, parry builds are fun. Doing lots of parries is fun. Landing loads of visceral attacks is fun. And beneficial, because the amount of damage it does is insane. It's just... I don't know. Everything about it just works. Even when it doesn't. Even when it doesn't work, it works. It just works. The game is the game. I offer these ideas for reworks of like certain enemies and something, or like getting rid of certain bosses or improving certain bosses or whatever, but those are kind of pointless. Not because the game can't be improved. Yeah, the game can be improved. But like, they'd be such minor improvements that it kind of doesn't matter. Like, I don't know, let's look at it objectively. Like, Rom sucks. Rom is a shit boss. It's a swarm boss with a main entity that fires a bunch of magic attacks at you. Annoying. That's just annoying. There's no other way to describe that. That's just annoying. How could we improve Rom? I don't fucking know, actually. Looking at Rom, he kind of is what he is, and it's kind of hard to rework him in any real way. I think most bosses in the game should always be melee focused, because that's more interesting, it's more dynamic, it's more engaging, it's more in your face, it's more enjoyable. All the best bosses in the game are, funnily enough, melee powerhouses who are really good in melee, not spellcasters who hang back, because that's not a fun fight. That's not an enjoyable fight. Or look, I can't speak for everything. I'm sure there are good spellcasting bosses, maybe in other Souls games or in games in general, but in Bloodborne, I'm not seeing it. I have not seen a single primary spellcasting boss in the game that I enjoyed. Witches of Hemwick suck. And primary spellcasting bosses always have bodies. Have you noticed this? Almost always have bodies. Miklash has bodies. Witches of Hemwick have bodies. Rom has bodies. The One Reborn is kind of an inversion of this, where the boss itself is melee, but he has magic backup dancers. So you know what? I'm going to kind of count that in the same way, and the One Reborn sucks anyway. I could think of a way to improve the One Reborn, actually, other than getting rid of his spellcasting bodies, because they're annoying. The way the One Reborn seems to work, and I'm going off of memory here, slash, you know, what I perceived. I'm perhaps not the most knowledgeable person about this sort of thing. But the One Reborn is basically two entities that attack you separate of each other in the one whole, as it were. It's one body, two entities. They attack you separately. Now, that's a cool idea. That's an idea that's good on paper. But paper is flimsy. And when you drop it in the sink, it's completely useless. My first thing would be, don't have them be two separate entities. Do not have them be two separate entities with their attacks happening independently of each other. They need to sync up in some manner, because all you get is a boss fight where the player just hangs back for ages until they fall out of sync with each other and leave openings, and then you go in and hit them. It's not a fun or interesting boss. Murgo's wet nurse could do with being more aggressive. Not aggressive enough, not fast enough, which means all you're doing is hanging back, waiting for it to do something, and then avoiding the attack and hitting it. You get the shadow sections, which are interesting, but I wouldn't say the shadow sections are good, well designed as such, because all you do is just run away, or at least that's all I did. They're interesting, perhaps not well designed, but I think Murgo could do with being more aggressive, and that might make them a more enjoyable fight. I don't know, some testing would be required. I could say all this and then someone actually does it and then goes, hey, wait a minute, Foreman, this boss fight sucks even more now. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not a game dev, am I? I'm just throwing out suggestions. It's hard to say, really. Like, with the Living Failures and the Celestial Emissary, it really feels like, I'm not sure if that could be improved. I think you should just remove it. Just get rid of it. Fuck it. Because especially with the Living Failures and the Celestial Emissary, it's so close to another boss that you may as well just have that boss. Then have a boss happen like 2 minutes before that one. Why even bother? What's the point? I guess it does work for Lady Maria. Well, okay, alright. Those two bosses do work in a sense, not because they're good bosses, they're not. They're garbage. But they do work in providing context for a situation, for an area, or providing a little bit of info on the boss you're about to fight. You fight the Celestial Emissary and you're like, that's a fucking space dude. And then you go into the fucking basement and there is the literal daughter of the cosmos down there, and you're like, okay. So the existence of the Celestial Emissaries helps to improve the experience of meeting Ebrietis for the first time, because you're provided a little bit of context. And you see the living failures, and you're like, well, this boss fight sucks ass. Also, this entire area has been horrific. I'm sorry, but I am sorry once again that footage is not in my series, but I lost the footage. No, I didn't lose the footage. I didn't fucking record it in the first place. I forgot to hit the button. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. But you didn't miss much. It's living failures. Living failures suck. The research hall is actually a pretty cool area in the DLC, actually. I think it's a really good area. It's a real tone setter. It's really upsetting and unnerving and creepy. But you fight living failures and you're like, well, this sucks. And you beat it and you go, wow, that sucked. And then you find Lady Maria. Now, first of all, the suckiness of the living failures helps to elevate Lady Maria's fight. Second of all, the living failures provides even more context for how fucking scummy this place is, this research hall. And you've been hearing everyone talk about Lady Maria, and Lady Maria is clearly behind this in some form. Now, did she stick around and try and make things better for the patients, or was she the one ordering all this shit but pretending to be nice to them? I don't know. I'm sure you could find a more definitive answer out there if you looked. I don't personally know right now. But Lady Maria is involved in some way, and you're provided with a little more context before meeting her. And you don't even, I would say, you don't even know that the body sitting in that chair is Lady Maria until a fucking health bar shows up and you go, oh shit. Oh shit. And then she kicks your ass and you're like, oh shit. And then she kicks your ass like another 75 times if you're me. And you're like, oh shit. That provides context. That's cool. And I appreciate the fishing hamlet being a relatively short area because Kos is a fucking nightmare, and having the absolute crap kicked out of me a million times before getting to him would not have been particularly enjoyable. I like Kos as a boss fight. Very good. I've never been so fucking tweaked out and adrenalined up as I was when I finally beat him. I was I don't think I've ever been physically shaking on this show before, but I was physically shaking at the end of that fight because it is stressful and it is hard, and in every second, like when you actually are close to winning that fight, all you can think is, if I fuck up now, I have to do all this again, and I don't know how long it's going to take to get to where I just got to in this boss fight. I need to make it happen right now. It is scary. It is fantastic. Ludwig is still my favorite Bloodborne boss because everything about meeting Ludwig to the first time to finally beating him is stellar. Ludwig is a stellar boss. He is everything a Bloodborne boss should be. Including his music, his boss run, his significance within the game's overall story, the weapon you get for killing him, the arena, his noises, his attacks, his difficulty, the changeover in the second phase, everything about... I'm not saying that Ludwig is faultless. Every boss can be improved. Anything can be improved, technically. But Ludwig is the definition of what a Bloodborne boss should be. If they're not a hunter, at the very least. You know, I'd say... I don't know. It's a little harder to say that about Lady Maria. I like Lady Maria, but I'd hate it if every boss was like her. But Ludwig is the definitive beast boss in Bloodborne, purely through quality. I love Cleric Beast. I love the Bloodstarved Beast. I love Vicar Amelia. None of them... I hate Father Lawrence, but that's because I, for some reason, don't know how to fight him. But nothing comes close to Ludwig. Absolutely exceptional boss. 10 out of 10, A+, every day. But like going into the Hunter's Nightmare for the first time and finding blood-drunk hunters who are absolute fucking demons. Like they're using beast cutters and boom hammers and the beast hunter scythe and shit like that, and they take you to church. They take you to church. Oh boy, first time you meet one of those, they will probably kill you because their moves are big, intimidating, scary, heavily damaging, with a wide radius. You will die. It will take a while for you to get through them if you haven't played before. And if you have played before, you might need a few deaths to catch up and remember, you know? They're a little tricky. But like, even just fighting normal hunters throughout the world, you know, you occasionally find a hunter who's using like, I don't know, a fucking sword spear or something. Those are interesting fights. They're like proper stupid anime high-speed fights, and they're really fun. Fighting the bloody Crow of Canehurst was a goddamn nightmare. Oh my god. I forgot about the Crow of Canehurst. Oh boy. I think I was slightly underleveled for that one as well. That was a rough time. Crow of Canehurst is rough, but it's a really cool fight. It's a really cool character, and you fight them real cool, like, it's a dope encounter. I actually delved into using arcane items in this playthrough as well. I've never used the arcane items before, not really. I think I tried out the Hunter's Bone perhaps once, but never really bothered with it. And I think the Hunter's Bone is a really good item that you shouldn't use, because the way it alters your dodge, and it makes your dodge significantly better, it does. But the last thing you want, if you want to get good at Bloodborne, the last thing you want is to be relying on a better dodge, because that's a recipe for disaster, relying on that thing. And also, the duration of it isn't very long, which means you need to keep using Quicksilver bullets to top it up, which means no riposting for you because you won't have any bullets, because you're constantly going to be using that thing if you've come to rely on its enhanced dodging. I don't know. I don't think it's particularly good. No, it is good, actually. That's kind of the problem. It is great, it just doesn't last long enough, and therefore you shouldn't use it, because it alters your understanding of what your dodge can do. Plus, I always find that when I use the Hunter's Bone, I end up spamming dodge like crazy, because I'm trying to get my fucking money's worth out of it, which means I'm not actually fighting any better. Sure, I'm not getting hit, but I'm using so much stamina that I'm not swinging back. So I don't know. Very cool item. I love the Hunter's Bone as a concept, but I just don't think it's good for overall use. Black Sky Eye is there to be a little bitch cheese weapon, and you know what? Served me quite well. So there's that. Augur of Ebrietis is fun, but I swear to Christ, I could never get it. I could never get to do a visceral attack afterwards. Like, I would land it and open them up for a visceral attack, but the animation is so fucking long that they'd stand up by the time it was finished. Of course, this wasn't a problem for the NPC characters who did it to me, but you know what games are like. They have rules for themselves and they have rules for you. Beast's Roar is an exceptionally good arcane item if you use it correctly. Exceptionally good. You can knock things off ledges, but more to the point, if you get stuck, which can be an instant death in many cases, you can just say no and blow them all away and get out of there, and you're fine. Executioner's Gloves disappointed me. I was expecting a lot more damage out of those things, and I didn't get it. I don't know if maybe my arcane was too low, but oh boy, I was expecting a lot more. But I don't think I need to labor this point too much, ladies and gentlemen. I think we can leave it here. Bloodborne is definitely one of my favorite games. That's not a surprising thing to hear. Many gaming content creators go on record as saying Bloodborne is one of, if not their favorite game ever, because it is so exceptional. There's no experience quite like it. Even in other Souls games, which are the same genre, it's nothing quite like playing Bloodborne. It is a unique experience and an exceptionally good one. And if you haven't played Bloodborne, get a grip, get an idea of what your temper is like, and if you think you can handle getting stomped a bunch, yeah, give it a try, because I definitely think it will be worth it. But, you know, take your temper into consideration next. If you get really upset when you lose, you're not going to like it. You will not like it, because the game is not... You're not going to be the one who starts playing the game and doesn't die very much. I don't care how good you are at other games, it's just not going to happen. I don't care. It will not happen. You will die a lot, and you're going to have to accept that. Mainly because dying in the game is entirely necessary to becoming better at it, but I did a whole video on that topic and I don't need to go into it now. Bloodborne's exceptional. Tell me how much you like Bloodborne. I guess that's the video, isn't it? If you like Bloodborne, let me know how much you like Bloodborne. If you know Bloodborne and you have you have faults, complaints, there we go, complaints is the word. If you have complaints about Bloodborne and you're like, I don't think this is very good, or I think this could be better, or they didn't handle this very well, let me know. Absolutely put that in the comments, because I'd be interested to hear it. And if you think Bloodborne sucks, I can't imagine you'll be very popular, but feel free to say that too. It's your opinion. You can say what you want. I ask that everyone else simply disagrees and is not too rude about it to you, because you don't like Bloodborne. It's okay to not like Bloodborne. I don't judge you for not liking Bloodborne. I just love Bloodborne. We're allowed to like different things. There are games you like that I don't. There are games I like that you don't. Not many people here seem particularly interested in Total War Warhammer, but that's one of my favorite strategy games. A lot of people here probably don't even like strategy games, but I love strategy games. But I'm rambling, truly. It's time to end for the day. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know what I'll talk about next time, but that's always the case, isn't it? I say this every time. If you have any suggestions for topics, please let me know. But whatever I talk about, hope I see you there. Toodles, goodbye.